That's right, May 12, 2021. I am Jarrin Jackson and I love America. Thank you for watching. My bias, as usual, I am a Bible-believing Christian, constitutional defending, patriotic, Rush baby, Lynn Wood, multiple time endorsed Trump supporter. The gospel of Jesus Christ is the death, the burial, the resurrection. You get that from the Bible. It is God's word. Do not doubt it. It is true. Today is going to be a very special, I think, first time I've ever done this. This is the rejection of Liz Cheney. That's right, the rejection of Liz Cheney. There's a lot of other things going on, but I wanted to hone in on this one, and this one's going to be a little more of a political show, a little bit more of a political broadcast. There's not going to be a update or multiple phases. I'm going to be speaking directly about Liz Cheney and how her leadership is garbage, and how the fundamental presentation of her ideas is anathema, that is to say, the opposite, of not only what the Constitution stands for, not only what's good for America, but she's very deceptive in the words that she uses. And there's something very nefarious going on that I want to specifically speak to. Before I get to Liz Cheney, I kind of want to warm up. I kind of want to warm up with things. So I mean, that's going to be the broadcast. I'm going to go over a speech that Liz Cheney spoke about last night. She went to the floor of the House. I got a chicken outside. She went to the floor of the House, and she, basically repudiated President Donald J. Trump. She said, she made all sorts of allegations. We'll get into it. This broadcast is going to be a bit-by-bit refutation. There's going to be a bit... Godzilla's outside. It's my rooster. It's going to be a bit-by-bit refutation of Liz Cheney. And I'm doing this for a couple different reasons. Most importantly, because I think that conservatives... what's that mean? Whenever I say conservative, you have to conserve something. What is the thing that you conserve? She is going to say, and we're going to listen to her in a little bit, whenever she's going to say, I'm a conservative Republican. And then she's going to define what that means for her, and I'm going to use her own standard. Could you guys get Godzilla out, please? Just go chase him away. Get him away from the microphone. Sorry, I have a rooster right outside the door. So we're going to be talking about Liz Cheney. Before that, I want to get worked up, I want to build up into this. The first thing I want to say is a quick little pitch. I am ad-free. I have 0 corporate sponsors. I will never have corporate sponsors. I did a Bible study today. We got one laid on for tomorrow. You all have been very generous, and we are now over the 1/3 of the budget phase. Over 1/3 of the budget. Jarrin is always going to preach the gospel. I'm always going to defend the scripture. I'm always going to shed light on what the Constitution says. That's what this one is always going to be. That's what this episode is all about. But if you want to do that, the links are in the description. There's Venmo, PayPal. You can send a letter to the house. I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you. I do this to keep it ad-free. If you want to continue to do that and support what I do, thank you very much. In fact, someone sent me a Rush Limbaugh coffee mug. So there you go. My talk show hero. But this is not a talk show. This is a thought show. This is Jarrin Jackson's thought show, or a thought stream. Anyway, before we get started, so now what I want to do is I want to highlight something very particular up front. Whenever I speak about things, I want the oath of office. We're going to be talking about the oath. Well, I'll say that for a little bit. Let me go first to the least target, and we'll kind of escalate. So this morning, Kevin McCarthy, Republican from California, left godless commie Joe Biden's White House and had this to say.
But I don't think anybody is questioning the legitimacy of the presidential election. I think that is all over with. We're sitting here with the president today.
If you did not hear that, as I didn't, I want to play this real fast again. Let's play this real fast, Kevin. Go ahead and say it again. What'd you say, Kevin?
But I don't think anybody is questioning the legitimacy of the presidential election. I think that is all over with. We're sitting here with the president today.
No one is questioning. He doesn't think anyone is questioning the legitimacy of the election. That is over with. Kevin, I disagree with you. I do not agree with you. As a combat veteran, as a Republican, as a conservative Republican, I think you're wrong, and I think you're full of garbage, and I think you are a horrible leader, and you are not the future of the party. Why do I say this? And I don't care about... hey, Jarrin, are you going to be run for office? Hey, folks, this is between us. I'm gonna give you real talk. The reason why I'm so critical of my fellow Republicans is because these people stand in the gap trying to advance conservative values, a pro-constitution, pro-freedom, pro-limited perspective of government. I disagree with their approach, and they are in areas and positions of leadership, and their leadership affects me and my kids and everybody else. Moreover, these are supposed to be the people who are pushing back and standing on the front lines, literally, in the halls of Congress against the godless commies that are trying to jam down our throats federal takeover of election, continue to industrialize murder, child murder in the womb. They're going to normalize. Did you hear that godless commie Joe Biden is suing states? They filed a petition to the Supreme Court suing for the fact that Christian medical doctors and medical professionals have to go through with transgendered surgeries, gender reassignment. You read Genesis chapter 1, there is no such thing as a gender reassignment. There is only male and female. You get that the first book, the first chapter of the Bible. If you do not conserve God's order, if you don't conserve the very beginning of the Bible, who cares about any of the others? And so if you have a Ranny running for governor of California, I don't want to endorse anyone like that. I don't want to support anybody who is a publicly known fornicator, who is living in unrepentant sin. I'm a Christian. I want everyone to come to the knowledge of the truth. I want everyone to love Jesus Christ. I want to be welcoming and inviting to every single person. At the same time, I'm not going to affirm something that's going to destroy what God has made. And you have Republicans who are the leaders of the conservative movement who affirm destructive things. The God's created order is being undermined by many Republican leaders. And this, you can call this my purity live stream. This is going to be me cutting away from people like Kevin McCarthy, people like, we're going to talk about James Langford here in a second, and people like Liz Cheney. But the issue with Kevin McCarthy here is that for him to say that no one is contesting the election is to deny what's going on in Arizona, to deny what's going on in Michigan, to deny what's about to start happening, Lord willing, in Pennsylvania and in Georgia. It's to look at the 80 plus million Americans who voted for Donald J. Trump and to look at them and say, suck it up, Buttercup, but vote for us in 2022 so we can win back the speaker's gavel. For them, it's all about their position. Democrats take power, Republicans take office. Republicans are the controlled opposition. And that phrase is generally meant to say that even though the godless commies are kind of driving the train and everything's kind of generically or generally heading towards the massive government takeover of everything, you're supposed to have an opposition party. You're supposed to have people who can, enunciate and articulate a contradictory vision that actually gets you back towards truth. Because we believe in truth. We believe in order. We believe in love, like real love, not garbage, like fake rainbow flag love. But I digress. I disagree with Kevin McCarthy, and I pray that his influence in the party is not only waning, but limited. And I hope that his horizon is not going to extend very far. The reason is because stuff like that, I don't think many people are questioning the election. flies directly in the face of those of us who are watching the election live, election night, and saw 5 states within 1 hour all decide to stop voting. First time it's ever happened. I believe my eyes. I believe my ears. I know what I saw. I know what happened. And the last 6-7 months worth of fallout has been pointing to the fact that the people who are in control of the microphones and the cameras, who they themselves live in a box with large productions, blue check marks, fancy makeup on themselves to make themselves look perfect, and reading from a teleprompter, those folks have been describing to you an alternate form of reality, one that they've tried to craft. I am a nobody, out in the middle of the woods, Podunk, Oklahoma. I have a glorious beard and a hoodie, generally, and I've stated what my bias is. I want President Trump to be the president because he is the president. He won the election. We'll cover that here in a little bit. But Kevin McCarthy, you're number one. Like you're number one on the list that needs to Vamanos a la escuela. And yes, I know that means let's go to the school. I use it as a general Spanish phrase to say let's get going. Because I don't know Spanish. So whenever I say something in Spanish because I don't know Spanish, it means whatever I want it to mean. Kind of like how godless commies use English to mean whatever they want to. Birthing person. Yeah, it's get out of the way, birthing people. The second person is my senator from here in Oklahoma. James, I'm actually from Texas, Langford. James Langford, for those of you all who don't know, is a Baptist minister. His background is in the Baptist church. Specifically, he was a camp counselor at Falls Creek Baptist summer place here in Oklahoma. I didn't grow up in the Baptist church, so I didn't go to Falls Creek. But in Oklahoma, he has a pretty large base of Baptists, Christians, who voted him into office in 2014 when my political mentor, Dr. Tom Coburn, who died early last year, retired. Dr. Coburn did not retire because he was sick with cancer, although he was. Dr. Coburn retired and left Washington because he saw that it was incongruent with anything getting actually done. And when Dr. Coburn left the U.S. Senate, he actually championed the Convention of States, the Article 5 method of we the people doing a Convention of States and changing the Constitution. But in the aftermath of Dr. Tom Coburn leaving office, there was an open Senate race here in Oklahoma. That open Senate race was won by none other than James Langford. James Langford rolled into a special election because he was known by a lot of Baptists in Oklahoma. Many people in Oklahoma love Jesus. That's why I love Oklahoma, actually. One of the many reasons why I love Oklahoma. But these people who love Oklahoma voted for James Langford and love Jesus. They voted for James Langford because he had only been in office for like 1 or 2 terms in the House of Representatives. So they don't really know him. And he didn't really have the opportunity to demonstrate his leadership. My beef with James Langford began during COVID last year. I'm going to overlook the fact that, I'm going to look past the obvious things. I'll let you determine what those obvious things are. I'm going to overlook those things. In 2020, when my restaurants and everybody else were shut down because of COVID, James Langford wrote a letter. You can look it up, the Langford 9. He wrote a letter to President Trump asking for more immigrants to this country, more refugees. Not only do you and I, as law-abiding, tax-confiscated people, pay for those people to come here, and not only do they live on the government's dollar, in our housing, but we pay for everything when they come. So this is the type of guy that believes that his Christian moral sense of taking care of his brother, which you absolutely should do. Langford believes that it's best accomplished by government, and I disagree with him there. I believe that God's mission to make disciples, go therefore and make disciples, is best done on an individual basis. Why? Because that's how God does stuff. If people choose to use the government to implement God's will, unless it's keeping the laws that God talks about and punishing evil and rewarding righteousness, okay. But we got to talk about what the role of government is. Whenever you're a Christian, as soon as you pass over to the political realm and now you're in an elected office, you have to think about what the positive role of government is. And there's a really healthy conversation with that. But James Langford sees that America is just a place for everyone to come in. And during a global pandemic that had destroyed the world's economy, except for China's, this man wrote a letter to Donald J. Trump asking him for more people who aren't Americans to come here. Continue to bring people who aren't here to take my money while I'm not making money, while you're shutting down my business, so that they can live here to continue to take my money. Pew Research says that 71% of people who come to this country, whether it's legally or illegally, are on some type of federal subsidy. Their kids go to our publicly funded schools. That's our taxes. They walk into our emergency rooms to get stabilized. Many of them walk into the emergency room knowing that that's how they're going to get care. Who picks up the tab? The taxpayer. You and I pay for people who aren't Americans to benefit from the system. And in a time when people, tens of millions of us, were being destroyed by what the government was doing to us, this guy was asking for more people who aren't Americans to come here. That's strike one. Strike two is James Langford works with Christian charities that get kickbacks to bring in people who aren't Americans. This is detailed in Michelle Malkin's book, what's it called? Open Borders Incorporated. Sit down. This is detailed by Michelle Malkin's book, Open Borders Incorporated, where she goes on about how these Christian charities include, from all ranges of the the spiritual spectrum, whether it's Catholics or Baptists or Methodists or Lutherans or basically anybody else. These large charities get millions of dollars from the federal government to relocate non-Americans to America. And it's very lucrative. You can read that book, Open Borders Inc. by Michelle Malkin. James Langford is in bed with these Christian charities that siphon your tax dollars to bring non-Americans here. And during the time when everyone's hurting because of COVID, I don't think that's an appropriate judgment. His judgment is flawed. That's my main characterization. The last one, I should say the last two. January 6th, James Langford is coming up on re-election here in 2022. When James Langford is going to the Article 12, the certification process on January 6th, the insurrection attack led by President Trump. When James Langford goes to that, he tells Oklahoma, I'm going to vote to not certify the electoral results. So he was representing the majority of Oklahoma who voted for Trump and believes that there's fraud. He was affirming our position. And so, yeah, roger that. Go do stuff. Like, amen. I'll support you. I even tweeted, you can go check my Twitter. I said, if you don't vote for Trump, I might challenge you. So it's like, but he said he wasn't going to vote for the process. Then the insurrection happened, and then he voted for it. So he literally changed his mind based on the attack that happened on the Capitol. So his principled position is that he said the electoral process was not valid and he wasn't going to certify it. And then all of a sudden he did. I'm building up to a point, by the way. I'm trying to give you the background because I know a lot of you don't care about this, but this is emblematic. It's indicative of where the Republican leadership is. And unless someone actually drills down into the details, you're never going to get this stuff. Because, and I'm about to show you a video. It's all glitz and glam. It's all talking point, tabloid, hey, where's the wind blowing kind of thing. After he flip-flopped on the electoral process, he came back here in Tulsa, and he apologized to Black Lives Matter, a Marxist, godless organization. This is a Baptist preacher apologizing to Black Lives Matter based on the Ifir, the voodoo religion of Western Africa. Western African voodoo religions incite and shape the theological and spiritual context of Black Lives Matter. The political frame is cultural Marxism. These people hate America. Because they hate America, they're godless, and they hate you and how you think and the Constitution. And yet, here is James Langford, representing a conservative Oklahoma, who's never, not one single county in Oklahoma in this century has ever voted for a Democrat president. Hasn't happened. We're the reddest of the red, folks, and this is the guy that represents me and millions of other Oklahomans in Senate. and he flip-flopped and he apologized to this Marxist, godless organization that invokes voodoo religion. Now, does he know that? I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know how much research he does. But he apologized to him. Now, this brings me up to date with James Langford. I'm about to play a video. All of this is context and preface. James Langford is being challenged by a guy named Jackson Lawmeyer. Jackson Lawmeyer is challenging this dude with the endorsement of General Mike Flynn. General Mike Flynn is a pipe-hitting patriot. The dude was persecuted by the deep state and the godless commies. If there's one person in this country, right meow, that's got patriot credibility, it's Mike Flynn. Mike Flynn, the first endorsement he ever made was for the guy challenging James Langford. Okay? So now you know what's going on. So Langford sees this and is like, holy crap, there's people who are pissed that I suck. Yeah. And so then he does this. All of that is to build up to this video. I'm going to play it, and then I'm going to talk about it. Watch this.
James Langford, want to be able to give you a quick update. I'm in McAllen, Texas, literally right at the Texas-Mexico border. This is one of the underground processing areas that has been set up literally under a bridge. This is a bridge that moves from Mexico into the United States. This is where families are actually coming, and unaccompanied minors will just show up here during the night. And like I said, it's about 11:14 at night right now. They'll show up. I'll kind of turn around here so you can see it. That far end down there, the bright spot, that's Mexico right down there. They'll show up down in that spot. They'll be able to walk through. They're picked up by Border Patrol here. They're organized. They get their name, their information. They'll go through a very basic screening where basically they're asked, do you feel well, kind of thing, with a basic screening. They'll get their name and information. If they have a child that's 6 years old or younger, or they're unaccompanied minor, but they can have like 10 people together that all say they're family, and if they have one child that's 5 or 6 years old, then all these folks will be released tonight into McAllen, Texas. Literally within a couple of hours from when they walk up from Mexico, they'll go through the basic processing here, and all these folks will be released into the United States tonight with what's called a notice to appear. It's a piece of paperwork saying you've got to show up at a court hearing. Some of those court hearings are 3 years later. So literally they're into the country for the next 3 years. So they'll walk up way down there. They'll come through some basic processing here, and you can see, I don't know how many are here right now. And then there's buses here at the end, and those buses will take them into the central part of McAllen, Texas, and they'll just be released at a bus station from there, and they can go anywhere in the country that they want to be able to go with that update. This is the problem. This is one of the areas that the media is not allowed to be able to come into. That's why I wanted to be able to be here, to be able to see it and say, this is the thing that Biden does not want you to see, is that literally people walk across the border, they check in here, and they are all released. 100% of the people that are here tonight will be released.
He voted for it. He didn't do anything to stop it. He voted to certify the election. He said it wasn't right, and then he voted to certify it. And there he is on the border with the challenger being endorsed by General Mike Flynn because he has a challenger. Now he's out there at night with his shirt undone and his oh, it's night time here at the Texas border. They're gonna let these people go. Joe Biden is doing this. No, you are doing this. You did this. You created this climate. You cannot judge and condemn the bad things that are going on because you participated in it. Your judgment, your bad judgment, decided to motivate your vote, and did you try to, influence anybody else that was in the Senate? Did anybody else, were you trying to talk to anybody else to try to tell them that it was wrong? But do you see what he's doing? This guy works with charities, Christian charities, to take your money to bring people into the country. Why is he complaining about that? Maybe because he doesn't get kickbacks anymore. I don't know. Hey, I'm just raising the issue. But this is the type of cowardice that's there. This strength down at the border. This is designed to get people back here in Oklahoma who watches stuff to look at him and go, oh, look at that. He's down at the border. Good. Yeah, he's a good conservative. He's a Christian, too. Did you know that? He's down there supporting the closed border. He's down there defending my rights. No, he's not. No, he's not. He's part of the swamp that created the system, And he flips and he flops and he doesn't stand for anything. He's a coward. And his cowardice is now manifesting in strength and resolute. And I'm down here at the border, and this is an open border, and Joe Biden has done this, and the media doesn't want you to do this, and I actually got back here because I'm a senator, and I'm here giving you the truth. People don't forget. Like, they know where you stood when it mattered most. When the vote was on the line and you had your ability to say something about it, you changed your position because of what? Because of an attack? This is the frustrating part, folks, because the Republican jugular is kindness. If you are a Republican, if you're a Christian, if you defend the Constitution, if you love Jesus, if you love America, you're probably a decent person in the sense that you don't want to treat people bad. Now, you're a sinner, no different. But most Americans, even a lot of people who are on the Democrat side, we've marinated in a Christian culture. And this Christian culture, the way that Satan is killing us right now is through political correctness. He's not allowing people to speak the truth. There's a passage in 1 Corinthians 13. It says, love is patient, love is kind. If you think about that, people are always going to be like, well, love is patient and love is kind. Well, what does that mean? Well, patient is long-tempered. But then if you look in the Greek, kind is actually someone who helps people. You help them with their problems, which means whenever you see a problem, you go do stuff. You selfless service. You help people. Love is patient and love is kind. So you don't get angry and you help people. That's the basis of love. But don't make the category error of saying that someone who represents you, who distributes your power, your consent, they don't love in your place. And that's one of the major problems that conservatives, Republicans, are going to make, is they're going to look at these people who speak really nice, and they speak monotone because they're not threatening, and they're going to have, their faces, and, I'm a man of faith, and so my faith says that we need to secure the border. What does that even mean, secure the border? That's the frustrating part. Now I'm just getting warmed up. Let's go to Liz Cheney. Let's roll. I feel like we should roll the rock. Let's roll the rock. Oh, shoot. All right, Liz Cheney. Here is what Liz Cheney said.
God has blessed America, Mr. Speaker, but our freedom only survives if we protect it, if we honor our oath taken before God in this chamber to support and defend the Constitution, if we recognize threats to freedom when they arise.
Our oath taken before God. Matthew 5:37, Jesus says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Anything else is of the evil one. Remember that. Now let's look at the oath. The oath of office for any member of Congress, whether the Senate or the House, is found in this statute right here. Now, I'm going to put right underneath it the oath of office for military. So this is Congress. Now I'm going to put the military oath. Do you notice anything? They're exactly the same. The oath of office for Congress, Senate, or House of Representatives is on top. The oath for any military officer in the United States Army or Marines or Air Force, whatever, any military commissioned officer is in the bottom. It's the exact same. That oath reads, I, state your name, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God. So that issue, you're going to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And that, for me, friends, has been something that I have dedicated over a decade of my life to. It's something that whenever you swear the oath, there's not really a process to get you to unswear the oath. In fact, whenever you take it, you're taking it freely, without any mental reservations or purpose of evasion. So, Liz Cheney says we should honor our oath and uphold our oath that we took before God. God, Jesus Christ, said on the Sermon on the Mount, let your yes be yes and your no be no. He also told you don't swear by any, by the hairs of your head. But we're going to go there right now. So Jesus says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. You just looked at the oath. So now, Liz Cheney, please continue to say, what is the problem? This is last night. This is Liz Cheney on the floor of the House, right before she got booted from House leadership. This is what she has to say.
Today, we face a threat America has never seen before. A former president who provoked a violent attack on this Capitol in an effort to steal the election has resumed his aggressive effort to convince Americans that the election was stolen from him. He risks inciting further violence. Millions of Americans have been misled by the former president. They have heard only his words, but not the truth, as he continues to undermine our democratic process, sowing seeds of doubt about whether democracy really works at all.
One of the things that's important here is she's attributing any future political violence to Donald J. Trump. She is assigning value and assigning blame, culpability to someone for what they say, for stuff in the future that hasn't yet happened. Do you think that that is lawful? Is it right? Is it moral? Is it a conservative tradition that if I use my freedom of speech, guaranteed by the First Amendment, by the way, and President Trump has the First Amendment just like Liz Cheney has the First Amendment, but just because you have the freedom of speech doesn't mean that the stuff you say is true. Interesting. But Liz Cheney is saying that what Donald J. Trump is saying is going to lead to political violence in the future. She's predicting the future. She's attributing blame, like moral culpability, against Trump. Now, see, most political commentators would probably just suffice to say, well, she hates Trump. She's anti-Trump. This is the rejection of Liz Cheney. This is not just the talking point refutation of Liz Cheney. This is the by the standard, by first principles rejection of everything that woman stands for. Because she's a liar, she's a hypocrite, and she's a destructive leader who is not only bad for this country, but she is participating herself in the lie to frustrate the majority of Americans to convince us that the way that we believe is wrong in the minority position and we should just move on and forget about it. That's what she's trying to do. In short, she's like that little person with the flute going and she's playing the Pied Piper tune to keep conservatives, people who are Americans and love Jesus and America and the Constitution, to get us to be kind, to get us to be like, yeah, it's over, let's move on. That's what she's going for. She's going for that psychological outcome. She's going for the outcome of, she's right. All right, we'll just get them next time. That's what they're doing. They're playing on the diligence of conservatism. See, conservatives are salt of the earth people. They're folks with dirt in their cuticles. They work. They have calluses on their hands. These are people who balance their checkbook because they're not built or born with a silver spoon in their mouth. These are folks that would much rather build something and be part of a team and solve a problem than they would to try to figure out what government form they need to say in order to get money from the government. These aren't people who are worried about changing God's immutable characteristics, male or female. These are people who are worried about how am I going to provide for the future? What type of legacy am I building for the future? Not what type of political opportunistic cultural Marxist term that I can just come up with to kind of destroy millennia of human history and the basic of Western civilization. Conservatives don't do that. Literally don't do that. And so these people are Pied Pipers to trying to speak to the diligence of conservatives to get us to say, okay, well, we'll get them next time. They're using one of the strengths of conservatism, perseverance, endurance, determination, willpower. They're using that as a shackle to try to lead us to say, hey, you just get them next time. You just get them next time, man. It's not that big a deal. But notice what she said. She said that President Trump incited that riot. False. Like, President Trump was still speaking while the riot and the insurrection was happening. Let's not even talk about the footage of the security guards, the Capitol Police, which falls underneath the jurisdiction of Nancy Pelosi and Charles Schumer, by the way. The only cops in all of D.C. that fall underneath the Speaker of the House is the D.C. Capitol Police. There's video of the D.C. Capitol Police opening up the doors and go, come on in, guys. Doors wide open. But let's also say that CNN, Godless Commie CNN, wrote an article. Look at this. Look at this spin. Brian Stelter, January 6. Congressional reporters became the country's eyes and ears as rioters stormed the Capitol Hill. Why did CNN... Look at this. Look at how much is lie. This is Satan is the father of lies. CNN wrote an article saying CNN reporters became the eyes and ears of the rioters inside the Capitol. Why? Because they were coordinating with the people who began the riot. But Liz Cheney wants to talk about truth. She wants to talk about upholding our Constitution. Here's this next one. Let's do the third bit. Here we go.
I am a conservative Republican, and the most conservative of conservative principles is reverence for the rule of law.
Reverence for the rule of law is the most conservative thing you can do. So let's look at what the law is. The Article 6 of the Constitution says that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Go back a couple articles and you get Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution. Now there's Article 2, Section 1. Look at that. The executive power, not that paragraph. Don't pay attention to that one. The second one. Each state, each Supreme Court? No, each state. Each federal district? No, each state. Each congressional electoral certification process? No, each state. Each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof. So that means the state legislature may direct a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled to in the Congress. But no senator or representative or person holding any office or trust or profit in the United States shall be appointed an elector. So the only restriction on the state legislature is that the legislature can't choose as an elector anyone who's in an office of trust or profit or senator or representative. Other than that, the state legislature can basically choose whoever they want to go be the elector to certify the process. Because our president isn't elected by a direct election. It's the Electoral College. The Electoral College is a decentralized way to compel nationwide candidates. Otherwise, you would just go to the biggest cities and manipulate the vote there. Interesting. So, if you consider that the law, Liz Cheney's about the law, the rule of law, right? Let's conserve the rule of law. Article 2, Section 1 says the state legislature chooses the method by which the elector is chosen for the process. Now, let's just let's just say out front that power is not plenary, which it is. Plenary means ubiquitous, universal. It's never ending. It is general. So the state legislature doesn't have to provide its electors on a certain day. It's tradition that it was December 14, 15. But if the state legislator wanted to be like, nah, we're going to pull you guys back, we're going to send these guys up, they can. Why? Article 2, Section 1. Now, if we're going to uphold the rule of law, Liz Cheney, here is what I want to say. How many states had their election laws, the laws that the state legislatures passed to choose those electors? How many of those states and which states had those things violated? Were any of the state legislation or were any of the state election laws violated? Because if they were violated, then by Liz Cheney's definition, by her own standard, the oath she took under God, she would have to uphold the rule of law, right? The rule of law, Article 6 of the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Well, the supreme law of the land, Article 2, Section 1, says that the state legislatures chooses the electors, right? You follow? So if that's the case, let's just look at 6 random states. I'll just pick Arizona. Arizona wants to invalidate their 2018 and 2020 elections. Why? Because they weren't certified the right way according to Arizona law. That's right. Arizona law says that they have to be certified in a very specific way. Well, guess what? They weren't certified that way in 2018, and they weren't certified the way that the Arizona state legislature dictated that they had to be certified in 2020. which means that the elections in 2018 and the elections in 2020 for Arizona did not comply with the state election law. So Article 2, Section 1, each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct. So if the Arizona state legislature directs that it has to be done a certain way, and then the elector is chosen in a way that is not that way, is that according to the law or not? That's just the first state. Let's go to the second state. Let's just choose randomly Michigan. Let's choose Michigan. You remember whenever the TCF Center had a van that pulls up and there was deliveries of tens of thousands of illegal ballots 8 hours after the deadline? Now, who's to say what the deadline is? Well, if you read Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution, the state legislature directs the method by which the electors are chosen. And in Michigan, the state legislature chose a hard and fast time that no more ballots can be accepted, which means that all ballots had to be in by a certain time. And yet, as you saw here, certain ballots were not in at certain times. And then there's also this little pesky notion that you have to have transparency. Remember this in Detroit? Hey, who ordered pizza? Not that racist Papa John's guy. Remember, he called black people the bad word, right? So they didn't get Papa John's pizza, but they sure were using pizza boxes to block people to see. Very transparent. Rule of law, Liz Cheney. Okay, so now let's go to... So that's the second state. Let's go to the third one. Let's see, last week at the Live Local event, I met someone from Wisconsin. So maybe let's go to Wisconsin. The opposite end of the alphabet, right? Wisconsin election law was violated. How? Well, the elections chief from Milwaukee, right? It was how you say it, by the way, according to the Alice Cooper on, what's that movie? Wayne's World. Milwaukee, the elections chief flash drive. He lost it. But then guess what? He found 120,000 votes for Joe Biden. It's an election miracle. It's like, if you run a godless commie candidate who will never get out of the basement, can't remember his lines, and has a woman of easy virtue as his presidential running mate, you might need a miracle. That miracle may include, for a one-time offer of godless commies, pedophilia, and blood sacrifice to Lucifer, you might be able to get 120,000 votes whenever you need it. Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're a member of the cabal. Let's just obey Satan. Oh, what number of state is that? It's that's 1, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin. Oh, how about my favorite, Georgia? Georgia, what happened in Georgia? Well, one, you had a pipe burst that didn't actually burst, and no one can provide the plumbing invoice, and it was a different facility, not the counting tabulating facility that they said it was. So you've got like this, broken, miraculous pipe bursting in one building, but it didn't really burst, but we're going to say it burst over here. But because there was a pipe burst that burst over there, we got to stop voting and counting over here, because that's how Georgia does stuff. Do you think Georgia election law specifies that if a pipe doesn't burst in this building, but it said that a pipe bursts in this building, that you could stop tabulating and counting ballots in this building? Do you think Georgia election law says that? You still believe in Santa Claus, don't you? All right, so let's do my next state, my fifth state. Good friend Teddy Daniels is from the great state of Pennsylvania. Here is a guy, this is from Gateway Pundit. Here's a member of the press who agrees with Democrats that are running tabulation centers in Philadelphia that GOP poll watchers can't get in there. Get out of here, godless commie GOP. Get out of here, Republicans. Get out of here, people who want the rule of law. Does Liz Cheney support this? I wonder. When the district judge told the people at the Philadelphia Tabulation Center that they had to let Republican lawmakers in, or poll watchers in, I wonder when the judge said that they had to have, equal poll watchers, which is state election law, by the way. I wonder when the judge said that. And then the sheriff, the chief law enforcement officer, there in Philadelphia said, nah. I wonder if that chief law enforcement officer, the godless commie cabal supporting sheriff, who basically said, Nah, I'm not going to support that law. And then he threatened to arrest people if they came in there. I wonder if he was obeying the law. Who is obeying the law? Not Liz Cheney, not the cabal, not the Democrats, not the media, not the people who are participating in stealing this election. We haven't even talked about the most important things yet. My last state, just another random state, by the way. Let's try Nevada. This article from Nevada, the Citizens Journal, you can look this up. 5,800 more votes than voters in November 3rd election. Now, how is that possible? I just did, this is just Nevada. I just did a Bible study today. That Bible study was John chapter 6. In John chapter 6, Jesus feeds the 5,000. And before breaking the bread, he looks up into heaven and he gives thanks. A Hebrew prayer would have been something along the lines of, God of the universe, thank you for giving bread from the earth. Now Jesus gave thanks and he broke bread and he fed the 5,000 because he was the Messiah. He is the Messiah. He is the Christ. Believe in him and you will go to heaven. Do not believe him, you go to hell. But Jesus fed the 5,000. A little bit more because there was women and children. 5,000 men. Here in Nevada, 5,800 more votes than voters. How is that possible? It's another miracle. So many miracles happened on election night. Yes! Oh, but too bad the godless commies don't believe in miracles. They believe in transhumanism. They believe in gender reassignment surgeries. They believe that you come from monkeys. All right, let's get back to Liz Cheney. What else you got for us, Liz? Now that we've talked about how election law hasn't been upheld, every single one of those was against the state election law. And if the state election law was violated, were the state electors chosen according to what the state legislature chose? No. So Liz Cheney, oath into God, supreme law of the land, conservatives uphold the rule of law. Article 6 of the Constitution says that the supreme law of the land is the Constitution. Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution says that state legislatures choose how their electors do. I just showed you 6 states and 6 specific ways that those individual state legislatures' laws were violated by what happened in the aftermath of November 3rd. Do you think that electors were chosen legally, fairly, constitutionally, morally? If you're Liz Cheney, you probably do. Let's get to the next one. You're up, Liz.
The Electoral College has voted. More than 60 state and federal courts, including multiple judges the former president appointed, have rejected his claims. The Trump Department of Justice investigated the former president's claims of widespread fraud and found no evidence to support them. The election is over. That is the rule of law. That is our constitutional process.
Now this is where Republicans will stand. Our process is over. This is where they will be monotonous, and this is where they will. Well, we have a process, and that process has been lived out, and the courts didn't find evidence. The judges, the DOJ didn't find evidence. Could any of them be complicit? Well, Jarrin, you sound like a conspiracy theorist. Okay, all right. Hey, all right. If you want to trust the FBI, if you want to trust the CIA, if you want to trust the NSA, if you want to trust all these governmental issues and governmental institutions, okay, that's on you. I disagree with you. Not all of them. I mean, some of them are decent, honest, God-fearing, constitutional defending Americans. Amen. This is not a categorical rejection of the people in those institutions. I'm just saying the FBI hasn't really had a really great track record when it comes to civil liberties. Like the carnivore program from the 1990s. We'll see the Edward Snowden, the NSA, there's just, call me a guy that just loves privacy, but I love privacy. But let's just say, hey, the judges haven't seen it, whatever. This is equivocation. It's equivocation. The prima facie issue. Prima facie is Latin for first face. The first look. The thing you must first look at is, in my view, were the electors chosen the right way? Well, no, because we just saw that the election laws were violated. But let's say that there's not evidence. She is saying, you understand what she's doing right here. This is called an appeal to authority. This is a logical fallacy. The reason why I gave myself a PhD and an MD and a JD and an MDiv and a whatever other degrees that you want. I gave myself these high degrees in stuffology so that I've got the credentials. So if anyone ever disagrees with me, I can just say, I've got a doctorate in stuffology. Well, that's not a thing. Well, yes it is. I have a piece of paper that says it is. What she's doing is credentialism. She's outsourcing her truth to the people who are in the positions, in her view, that she points to say what truth is. The arbiters of justice and righteousness and truth. Well, one, what if they're complicit? Because I think most of them are. Two, what if they're not the ones that choose what's right and what's wrong? Remember, let's get back to the Declaration. The Declaration of Independence says the consent of the governed is what gives government its just powers. The government is instituted amongst the consent of the governed. If the consent of the governed leads to state election law, and those state election laws were violated 6 times independently, as I just showed you, then the governed, or the consent of the people, the American citizen, wasn't following through. But that's not it, because I don't want to just rest on legal arguments or constitutional arguments. So, have you ever heard of Mike Lindell? Sure you have, because where you at? Because you watch me. I'm a Q-list celebrity. Look at that guy. That's Jarrin Jackson with Mike Lindell. That's Mike Lindell. Mike Lindell's on the right. Jarrin Jackson's on the left. Mike Lindell has spent a bazillion dollars doing stuff like Absolute Proof, which has its own IMDb page. You can find it on Amazon Prime. Literally. He's also, and this is a 2-hour film, 2-hour documentary, talking about how there's absolute proof that there was election interference, election fraud. He also came up with another one, another 2-hour documentary. You can find this on Rumble, Patrick Burns' page. This is absolute interference. It's the sequel. The sequel means 2. That means there's more than one. So this dude has spent a lot of time to make more than one thing showing how there's evidence to suggest that what we're saying is true. But then he didn't stop there, folks. Everything good comes in 3s. The Holy Trinity and proof that the election was stolen. This says Mike Lindell TV releases scientific proof. New television special with world-renowned physicist. See, he didn't just get someone who's got a doctorate in stuffology. He got a dude that knows stuff with a big brain. Has to walk with a shopping cart because his head is so big. Pushes his brain around with a shopping cart. That's how smart these people are. Saying that there's multiple different ways that fraud was committed. Multiple. Not just one. Not just like, I support Trump and I don't believe what I'm told by the media. 6 hours. 6 hours of individual, specific, evidenced, scientists' conclusions saying that what is being reported is not so. That's big. What else you got, Liz Cheney?
Those who refuse to accept the rulings of our courts are at war with the Constitution. Our duty is clear. Every one of us who has sworn the oath must act to prevent the unraveling of our democracy. This is not about policy. This is not about partisanship. This is about our duty as Americans. Remaining silent and ignoring the lie emboldens the liar.
Yeah, okay. So she says anyone who continues to do this is at war with the Constitution. That is a big charge. She is alleging treason. Treason is defined in the Constitution, Article 3, Section 3. So let me make this like this. Treason against the United States shall consist only, right? So it's only. This is the Constitution. Liz Cheney, remember, Liz Cheney wants the Constitution, the rule of law. Article 6 says the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So let's look what the law says about war with the Constitution. Treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them or adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of 2 witnesses to the same overt act or on confession in open court. Do you believe that President Trump, using his protected First Amendment right of freedom of speech, saying that he was had the election stolen, do you believe that is him levying war against the United States? Not against the Constitution, against the United States. That is a high charge. I submit to you that if Liz Cheney were not on the floor of the House, the only place, one of two places, the two places that you cannot be litigated against for what you say, complete absolution from anything that you say, the floor of the House or the floor of Congress and a federal courtroom. You can lie to your heart's content. It's the only time you can say whatever you want until God gets you, and then he's going to punish you, because liars will have their part in the lake of fire. But Liz Cheney is saying here that we are at war with the Constitution if we disagree with her. That is one of the most arrogant statements I can ever think of, considering the fact that she is arbitrarily, unilaterally determining that whoever disagrees with her interpretation of things is therefore not only against her. This isn't about Liz Cheney. This is about the Constitution and our democracy. It's a constitutional republic. The difference between a constitutional republic and a democracy is might makes right. It's mob rule. 50% plus one is the majority, and that majority can trample the rights of any individual because it has. That's the history of man. Those who do not, remember the past are doomed to relive it. One of the best things we know about learning history is that we don't learn history because we keep repeating it, because we're all sinners, we fall, and we always make the same mistakes. We think we're better than our fathers. We think we're better than the giants whose shoulders we stand on. Liz Cheney is saying that those who disagree with her, she's equating in her mind that her position is the constitutional position, which I've just pointed out to you that Article 2, Section 1 says that if you break state election laws, then those electors were not chosen the right way. So before you get to the federal courts, before you get to the DOJ, before you get to anything else that she says proves that there's no election fraud, you have to get all the way back to these very specific state legislatures and the laws on the books in the states that were violated. She won't do that. She also won't look at all the stuff Mike Lindell put out. But it's this notion of declaring war. And moving forward, I submit to you that this is what they're going to try to twist the dagger and screw people like me and you over with. They're going to start calling us domestic terrorists. The domestic terrorist label is going to be used against people who support President Trump, who actually want the rule of law advanced and defended. Those of us who have actually sworn the oath multiple times and have actually defended it and fought it in a combat zone, or defended the country in a combat zone, they're going to come after people like me because I disagree with them. And what they're doing here is they're assuming that their position is the constitutional one. And so disagreeing with them is not disagreeing with them, it's disagreeing with the Constitution. But it's more than that now, because now disagreeing with what they think is the Constitution is war. But if you look at the Constitution doesn't say that it's treason. It doesn't say that it's war to disagree with the Constitution. Treason is conducting war against the states or giving aid and comfort to the enemy. If I, using my defended and protected freedom of speech, say that I disagree with the way that the election was turned out, I think that all you guys are godless commies. I think that you're undermining the rule of law because you are looking this way, because you don't want the dude that was elected by the majority of the country to be in office, because he makes you look like a bum, he makes you look like a liar, and he's exposing how fraudulent you are. I've got that right. I've got that responsibility. She's talking about the duty. Remember, let's go back to the oath. The actual oath. The oath says, the oath says, bear true faith and allegiance to the same. What does it mean to bear true faith and allegiance to the same? True faith, not false faith. And allegiance. You're bearing true faith to the Constitution, allegiance to the Constitution. That means you're not allied with China. You're not allied with your pocketbook. You're not allied for your political future. If any of those things come up or in contrast to the Constitution, you downplay those and elevate the Constitution. Why? Because that's the thing you swore the oath to. The end of the Declaration, our founding fathers said, it is, divine providence, we mutually pledge our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honor. Our founders, Thomas Jefferson, said, our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honor. Our life, our money, our reputation are all on the line for these ideas. That woman has sworn an oath to the Constitution. That oath says she has to bear true faith and allegiance to the same. She's not upholding the rule of law. We've walked that dog. She's not accounting for other interpretations of the Constitution. So she has a fundamental, bad understanding of what freedom is. Freedom is not what Liz Cheney thinks it should be. Freedom is messy. Those rights are almost universal in the sense that government can't tell me what to do because God made me me. I'm an image bearer of God. I happen to be a citizen of the United States. But the ideas that made America recognize people first as made in God's image. And because God made us, we have rights. Government only exists to defend what God gives us. Government does not exist to flip it around to tell us what our rights are and thereby what we're allowed to or how we're allowed to worship God. Last idea. Last video.
I will not participate in that. I will not sit back and watch in silence while others lead our party down a path that abandons the rule of law and joins the former president's crusade to undermine our democracy.
Yeah, we're not a democracy. I don't really care about the Republican Party. I care about the Constitution. I care about liberty. I care about my family. I care about the ability for me to live my life without people telling me what to do. I generally want to preach the gospel to everybody. I don't want to compel people. As someone who's pulled the trigger and ended another image bearer of God's life, sometimes it's the right thing to do because they're godless commies and they're shooting at you and they need to be put down. But to use inflammatory, incendiary, illegal, immoral, unethical, unconstitutional language, assuming correctness from your own political position, and then imputing it onto everybody else, and if they don't measure up to your standard, assuming that we're guilty of treason, that we're guilty of going to war against the Constitution, I'm glad that woman lost power. I'm glad they booted her out. Good on the Republican caucus for at least acknowledging the political gale force winds that are blowing directly against Liz Cheney. It's like, oh boy, it's a category 5. I think we need to get her out of the leadership. Yes! Yes! Her, Langford, McCarthy, all of these people who think that the election's over. It's over, guys. Just give it up, man. Let's come up to 2022, okay? Donate to my campaign. I'm a conservative Republican. No, you're not. If you don't conserve the rule of law defined in the Constitution, according to what the Constitution says, you're not conserving anything. But more specifically than that, if you claim Christ, I think all of these people claim to be Christians. If you're a Christian, you have a duty not to defend your rights. You have a responsibility to preach the gospel. You have a responsibility to love your neighbor. You have a responsibility to be kind and compassionate to people, not to take your morality and to impose it on the government that is constrained by the Constitution. But you're going to look at the Constitution, you're going to say, my morality allows this Constitution to not be as relevant. We're going to spring forth this power from the government because it can do some good. And in so doing, we're going to take money that these people earn that's backed by the godless commie Rothschilds, and we're going to funnel it into whatever special interest that we want. The whole system is corrupt. Trump represented a wrecking ball. He was Miley Cyrus in this thing. I came in like a wrecking ball. He was busting this place up. And Republicans, conservatives, Christians, our weakness politically is that we're nice. I was telling someone today, I love people. I am not nice. I am done being nice. Being nice is not being kind. When the Bible talks about being kind to other people, that word is considering how you can help them. Many times in this world of increasing deceit, increasing craziness, where up is down and left is right and all these other kind of things, when we're mixing male and female, when we're basically doing the big F you to God, the most loving thing you can do, the most kind thing that you can do is speak to them about the truth. Unwavering. Don't give in to them. Don't be nice just because someone believes that a man can become a woman. You're not supporting Bruce Jenner running for California governor because of his fiscal policy. Free market capitalism. You're rejecting him because his candidacy flies in the face of God's created order. Chapter 1, Book 1. And if you don't even defend that, we're not even I mean, like, I've looked at the Constitution. I've specifically pointed to it. I've given specific bits of information that says that Liz Cheney's worldview, the way that she applies her political perspective is baseless. It's not constitutional. I haven't even impugned her motives. I haven't even talked about her dad, the business connections, BlackRock or whatever it's called. Like, I haven't even talked about her motives. I've just said on face that her ideas suck and they're garbage. Her mind is not focused on the foundation to which she says it is. James Langford has been part of the problem. He's been a career guy going along the political winds. He goes against his base, and then now he's acting as though he didn't. And it's because they think you're stupid. And while they think you're stupid and they present themselves in a monotone where they talk responsibly about, I'm a person of faith and this is just an open border and we need to secure the borders and we need to do these things. They're going to continue to survive. They're going to continue to succeed politically until Republicans and conservatives and Christians and patriots, we recognize, I don't want nice people. I want loving people. I want people who are going to love other people. I want people who love their country. I want people who are going to speak the truth, regardless of how many times they get called a racist by the godless commie media. I want people who look at other folks, who offer them political opportunities, offer them, great investment insight, because Congress people, they get lots of money from their positions, right? I want them to look at those things, those temptations, and reject it because they love the people that they represent more than they love the lust and the future that benefits them individually at the people's expense. If you swear that oath, your life is not your own anymore. You are a placeholder of political value, of political power. And that political power has been given to you by your equals. And your equals are equally made in God's image as you are. And if the rules that you agree to play by are written down and they're violated, then that's where your character is going to be tested. My prayer is that people like Liz Cheney and James Langford and Kevin McCarthy, I disagree with their politics, but these people have said that they stand for something, and their behavior suggests otherwise. And now that they've somehow locked the shields and circled the wagons and have said this is the way forward, they're not doing what they said they were going to do. And if you stand in political power, you are a representative of God. Romans 13, the magistrate does not wield the sword in vain. If you are in government, you are there to dispense righteousness and ensure justice. You are there to maintain order. You are a check on lawlessness. And if you're part of a system and you're deceiving people so that you can benefit, so that lawlessness may happen, so that you can continue to get elected, I wish you nothing but failure. I want nothing more for you to lose, and to lose your position and your power, and to go back home, repent, and get right with God and figure out, why do I suck? Like, that's what I want. You can find more information about me in the links below. My name is Jarrin Jackson. The gospel of Jesus Christ is that everybody sins. I sin. I don't like Liz Cheney. I love Liz Cheney. I don't like James Langford. I love James Langford. I don't like Kevin McCarthy. I love Kevin McCarthy. There's a lot of people I don't like. The gospel brings us all to the foot of the cross. When Jesus took the cross, he conquered sin for everybody. Everybody in the past, everybody in the present, everybody in the future. When he did that, he put us all in the same field, put us all in the same plane. When you recognize that you break God's law and that there's an eternal punishment that's guaranteed there, it doesn't matter who gets in the White House or who doesn't get in the White House. It doesn't matter if the Constitution is defended or not Constitution defended. What matters is you broke God's law, and God will punish you for that. God will look at his law. He will look at his created order, and he will determine, yes, you are guilty, and yes, you're going to get punished. Jesus took our place because only him, only Jesus Christ, not Christ consciousness, not the universal Christ, not fourth dimension or fifth dimension or Buddha or chakra or the light, none of this crap that's just vague and stupid and amorphous. Jesus Christ of the Bible. Jesus says in the book of John, whoever hears my word and believes my word and believes in he who sent me, God sent Jesus to die on the cross for sin. If you believe that, you believe that he rose from the grave, you're going to go to heaven. Absolutely, guaranteed. No matter how garbage or hateful or deceitful or violent this world gets, you're in. Guaranteed. Because he promises you. He's not going to swear an oath like a politician and waver and, which way does the winds go? He controls the winds. He controls the waves. He will bring every mountain low and raise every valley high. He will unroll the heavens as a scroll. He is the people that the Pharisees tried to overcome, but they couldn't resist. He healed the lame. He healed the sick. He gave sight to the blind. He fulfilled prophecy, and he said what the future was going to happen because he created everything, and he is from the beginning to the end, from everlasting to everlasting. He is the Alpha, the Omega, the great Adonai. He is the great I am. He spoke to Moses and the Israelites in the wilderness. He spoke to Joshua as they were military conquesting the promised land. He spoke to Solomon, radiated in all of his glory and his temple. He spoke to David, killing his tens of thousands. Samson, picking up the jawbone, killing 1,000 people, Judges 15:15, with the jawbone of a donkey. He came humbly and silently as a lamb, and like his lamb being led to the slaughter, he let it happen. It was not the nails that held Jesus on the cross. It was him. Matthew 26:51. Jesus could have called angels to destroy all people, everything, like that. He holds everything together by the word of his power. Do not doubt for a second. This is a mealy-mouthed, hippie, free love, hey man, what's going on kind of a Jesus. This is a loving Savior who did everything for you to take your place. He was very compassionate. That's the adjective most used to describe him. When he comes back, he will have fire in his eyes and a white robe, so pure white that whenever all the blood gets spattered on it, he's going to look like a military conqueror, because he will be. He's not coming back to be nice. He's not coming back to negotiate. He's not coming back temporarily. He's going to come back and he's going to win. He's going to win and rule with a rod of iron. The book of Psalms says that he will destroy and upend all the mountains. Well, at the same time, he inclines his ear to hear your prayer. Those prayers are stored by him at his throne. He cares about you. He wants to hear from you. But you got to repent and you got to believe in him. And if you don't, I'd hate to be you. Anyway, appreciate your time. I'm Jarrin Jackson. Now go to war.